Okay, look, I'm making a Lakers video. You don't like it? I frankly don't like it, but it's January and daddy has to pay bills. And honestly, to be frank, at a certain point, not making a video about the Lakers is intentionally not making a video about the Lakers. As much as I have covered this team, as much as everyone has covered this team, I have not gone out of my way to talk about them. They're just kind of the never-ending story. Sometimes I want to not talk about them regardless of that, but at a certain point, I can't ignore this team. So today, I have a different question for them among the many that you can ask, and that is a big one, and it's a question that I've been putting off specifically because I've held out hope that this question would answer itself. But that is, do the Lakers have any hope of turning it around at this point? Is there any going back, or are the Lakers just a sinking ship? I put out a poll on Twitter with this question, and with a little under 3,000 votes, 44% said there was a slim chance they could turn it around, 27% said it's 50-50, 8% said they'd be fine, so good on them for being optimistic, I guess, and 21%, more pessimistic, said there is essentially no hope of turning things around. The ship is taking on water. There is pretty much no denying that, but it's a matter of if it's enough of a hole that the ship is going to sink, or if it can be patched up and recovered. Either way, is there any hope for the Lakers? Let's talk about it. Before continuing on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then please subscribe. Also drop a like on this video, it only takes 1 second, it makes a massive difference. Trying to hit 300,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. So as the poll is presented, there really are 4 main possibilities with the Lakers from here on out. The first one is they're fine and there is no reason for concern. There's a 50-50 shot that things turn out fine or tank. There's a slim chance that they turn it around, and then they're just straight up done. Now, the first one is probably the toughest one to argue. Perhaps the Lakers were just about to build chemistry and figure everything out right as Anthony Davis got hurt. Maybe things were about to go good, and then fate just went in the opposite direction. The thing about that argument is it would be technically impossible to disprove. I mean, I guess you can't disprove anything like that, but my point is, I can't say for sure that you're wrong, but I think none of us felt as though things were going in that direction pre-AD getting hurt. 50-50 got second place. 50-50, of course, means the odds of them completely turning things around and turning into the contender that we kind of expected them to be are just as high as them continuing on this downward or just middling trajectory. So at that point, we need to look at their problems and see how amendable they are. Now, I will not go through the whole damn list because it is a long list and I already dedicated an entire video to every single problem with the Lakers, so you can go check that out if you really need a list of everything. But at the same time, there's even more problems because that's kind of the nature of this team, is that more and more keeps springing up. Russell Westbrook easily being the biggest one since that video, because I initially really did not give him too much criticism, but he has been a real problem since then. He was a problem to start. Then I felt he was unfairly blamed by the point of that video, and now he's been a problem yet again. He's shooting like 30% from the field in all of January. In fact, he's more of a problem than he's ever been. So in hopes that that specific problem amends itself, Russell Westbrook individually, I would say that is like a 50-50 thing, because whether you love Russell Westbrook, whether you hate him, or you're like me and you fall right down the middle, I think we can all agree that he can be a bit of a mixed bag. Really, how you feel about Russell Westbrook is pretty much determined by what percentage of him in negative versus positive you believe that split to be, and which side you tend to focus on. Early on with Russell Westbrook, I focused more on the negatives than I should have, and I was a hater. Then I think I might have focused too much on the positive as of late, and I've been a little bit too positive. So right down the middle right now, he could go either way. Russell Westbrook is a complete fucking wild card, as he has been for his entire career. As for the defense, which is another huge problem, AD coming back really would solve a lot of this. Though I do believe a lot of the defense is not going to be amended by this because the perimeter defense is weaker than it used to be, AD is good enough to single-handedly, at the very least, make the Lakers not a bad defense. And if AD could come back and offensively be similar to bubble AD, or at the very least a lot better than what we saw him this year before he got hurt, that would make a world of difference. Not necessarily for their offense, for something we'll talk about in a second, but at the very least that superstar power would be important and it would make a big difference overall. But where that becomes complicated is with LeBron James and the success that he and the Lakers have found offensively with him playing the 5. Now, something that's funny as hell that I saw a few people suggesting on Twitter, one of them in my hot takes, that I didn't even bother pointing out because it was low-hanging fruit. But it was someone who said like AD could come back and they could still run LeBron at center, just put AD at the 4. Do you think this is 2K? Like, regardless of what position you say the player is, doesn't make a fucking difference when AD is still effectively going to be playing like a big man and teams are still going to put their big man on Anthony Davis. At that point, you can call LeBron the center, but it's going to change how teams defend him versus if AD's not out there with him. That's just how basketball works. And it was only like 2 people I saw say this, but it was really fucking funny to me, so I had to point it out. So, an unfortunate part of the LeBron at center thing, and it's kind of the whole overarching feeling of that, is that LeBron at center is a temporary band-aid for a wound that practically needs surgery. And it's nice that you had that band-aid, it's cool that you found it, but it's not the solution because AD comes back and you're gonna be better with AD, but the positives that came from the LeBron at center thing are going to dissipate. You can still use it in situational lineups, you can still use it when AD is out because God knows he's going to be out again, but it's not a solution. So really with AD's return, you're improving the defense, and to be fair, the defense was not amazing with him, but it started to get really good and then he got hurt, so I just imagine he'll pick up where he left off. But the offense, I can't imagine is going to be any better than it has been as of late with LeBron at center, just because they've had like one of the top offensive ratings doing that. So I feel like you got to take the good with the bad there, and I think because they were so effective with LeBron at the 5, it's going to dissipate a little bit how impactful AD's return actually ends up being. It's still going to be positive, but it's weird that they almost found something that makes the loss of AD not feel as big, and thus his return doesn't feel as big. So I don't know that banking on him coming back being some huge drastic change for the team, I don't know that I'm quite buying into that, and that could just be me not thinking very highly of Anthony Davis, but what can I say? I don't think very highly of Anthony Davis relative to what a lot of people do. Frank Vogel's rotations have been notably better, but at the same time notably better in that he's no longer making the obviously wrong decision every single time. Still makes mistakes constantly, still puts out perplexing lineups. There was one the other day that I saw that was extremely perplexing, but I don't know, at least it's not holy shit bad constantly. So I don't know that firing him is necessarily going to be a solution. There's a world where it's like with the Hawks last year where a coaching change midseason made a world of difference. But typically speaking, that doesn't really happen. So as much as people want to see him gone, I feel like at the end of the day, even though he's been a problem, you're mostly just scapegoating him. So I don't have confidence that he's going to change things that drastically, but I also don't think firing him and replacing him is going to do that either. So Frank Vogel turning it around, not really going to be the case. AD coming back and things drastically changing as a result of that, I don't think that'll be the case. Russell Westbrook, again, is a wild card. I think LeBron's going to be LeBron. But looking at all of that, does a 50-50 split in terms of that going in a positive versus negative direction really feel like an accurate split there? Because if I'm being generous, I'd say it's probably 70 negative, 30 positive. And that brings us to the last two possibilities, which gets us our third option, the majority vote, and the one that I would have to agree with, which is that there is a slim chance. And I do have to pick that one over the no chance option, because as much as you can criticize the Lakers, I think most of us would agree that there is so much talent on the table here that we can't outright dismiss it as a 0% chance that the Lakers can turn it around and say they're just done. I don't think that's entirely fair. I don't think most reasonable people would. And hell, I think most of us have seen stranger things happen in the NBA at this point. It would be one of the all-time comebacks from a poor start to the season versus getting to all the way to contender, but completely out of the realm of possibility, I wouldn't put them there. But at the same time, I also think 50-50 is being a little bit too optimistic. In a perfect world, AD is back and amazing. His offense can somewhat elevate them, meanwhile he elevates the defense to an extreme extent. Russell Westbrook and Frank Vogel both become more consistent, not necessarily amazing, but we know what we're getting and it's generally positive. They make a trade or two that probably does not seem huge on the surface level, but ends up making a big difference. Maybe someone like Malik Monk, who's been amazing as of late, continues to step up in that regard. Talen Horton-Tucker more than likely is going to be moved, so his development does not get in the way of the team's current goals. LeBron continues to be LeBron, which is to say he continues to be fucking ridiculously good at the age of 37. All of that happens, and maybe there is a world where you talk me into this team being a contender. However, with everything that has gone down this season, for every new problem that sprouts up in place of an old one, which honestly, they're not even that good at getting rid of the old ones, it just seems like there's more problems than anything else. At this point, it is frankly smarter to bet on a negative than a positive. It's not as fun, but at this point, Vegas would bet on this thing going poorly. And you would be a fool to put your house on this team turning it around. I don't know. I've been trying to hold out hope with this team. I made a video at the start of the year where I was like, oh yeah, the secret genius of the Russell Westbrook trade. There is no secret genius. This team's a fucking train wreck. And I don't say it's impossible for them to recover, but the odds are not high. And I feel a little foolish for having been a little bit too positive. Maybe this is what I get for being too negative before. I went too far in the opposite direction, and now I gotta find myself in the midway. I don't know. I never know how to end these fucking videos. The Lakers are a mess. Maybe they can turn it around. There is some hope, but only a little bit. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and cue the outro music.